All right, motherfucks. We're going to talk about stables and factions, okay? This video is important because recent evidence has led me to believe that there is a lack of understanding of why stables exist. Stables have a multitude of purposes, but every stable typically has one purpose. Sometimes they have multiple. Typically it's one. First, let me tell you about two kinds of stables. The two primary kinds of stables. There is the everyone is equal stable, like for example the Shield, Nexus, kind of, you can argue, the Core, things like that, right? Those are stables where everyone is equal, like the most recent version of Evolution, right? Like that's a stable that's equal, you know? Then you have stables where they're not equal, and it's very clear why they exist. Typically, they exist to push one guy, right? So something like Legacy is a stable where it's obviously not equal. The entire purpose of Legacy, turned out, was just to push Randy Orton. You look at Evolution, right? The entire purpose of that stable is Triple H is the leader. He's the present, but you have two guys that are the future, right? That's like a sub-stable, right? In the stable where there's clearly an important person, sometimes the lesser person is the purpose behind the stable. So I believe, for example, that Legacy was really created to push Ted DiBiase Jr. It's just that, like, then they realized he sucks, so they just switched it to like Randy Orton beats both him and Cucky Rhodes, eventually leading Cucky Rhodes leaving the company. Motherfucks. But a lot of stables focus on one person, and that person is the clear star. So something like, the Ministry. Undertaker was clearly the leader. He was the head. He was the main guy. Everyone else was just there, right? The Acolytes were just there. Mideon and Viscera were just there. These people didn't have anything to do, so they put them there and they made them scary. So there you go. The Wyatt family. Clearly, Bray Wyatt is the one guy that's going to benefit from this, right? The Authority with Seth Rollins, right? These are much more common. And a great example of this recently is the Hurt Business. The Hurt Business is clearly there so Lashley can benefit at the expense of people like Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin. That's it. That's the purpose. Lashley benefited. It's time for them to bounce, right? Now, as I just mentioned, there are some stables that either change midway or that they have the implicit idea and implicit purpose that someone will benefit from this stable and it's not the leader, right? So Evolution, for example, is a perfect example, right? Even though Triple H is the leader and the stable is based around Triple H, you can argue that Triple H put everyone, including Ric Flair, on that stable over, right? Certainly he put over Randy Orton and Batista, making them, well, essentially household names, you know? But still, Triple H is the main guy behind that stable. Now that we got this out of the way, I want to point out some flaws in stable-based wrestling that we've seen in recent memory, okay? First of all, there are also, now especially, a third category of stables. Stables with no purpose, right? These are very weird stables, you know? Stables that have no purpose include something like, what's it called? EV 2.0, right? The ECW originals coming together. That stable has no purpose other than to promote ECW and the past, right? Stables like Jurassic Express have no purpose. There's no reason for this stable to exist. They just exist for some reason, you know? The Best Friends, there's no real reason for them to exist as a stable. But yet, here they are. The Nightmare Collective with Brandy Rhodes. That one had no purpose at all. And that's why it's no longer around, cucks. Now, let's talk about some stables that are doing things totally wrong, right? Like we just said, Jurassic Express is a great example. Jurassic Express has no purpose, and no one has explained, for example, why Jungle Boy is called Jungle Boy, and why Luchasaurus is called Luchasaurus. Why is Luchasaurus wearing a dinosaur mask? Someone explain this, please. And I don't even need an actual real or believable explanation. Just be like, oh, this guy really likes dinosaurs there, Taz. Boom, that's all I need. But someone needs to address the elephant in the room, that you have a grown man who calls himself Luchasaurus and wears a dinosaur mask. This is something that needs to be explained. Thus far, it has not been explained. That's not cool, all right? Obviously, a lot of people stand to gain from being in this stable because they're a stable that's featured prominently, but there's no clear leader. I mean, Jungle Boy's like obviously like their main guy, but there's no clear like leader, right? There's no, for example, it's very possible that Luchasaurus turns heel and then just buries Jungle Boy and becomes a single star, right? That's a very possible outcome of this stable. Which brings me to the main problem with stables that people seem to be having. Every stable, as soon as it starts, eventually will end. When the Shield debuted, I had two thoughts. The first thought was, I wonder what they're going to do next week. And the second thought was, I wonder what's going to happen when they break up. The first time I saw them. Because I'm like, who's going to come out on top? Who's going to be the star? Who's going to be the Shawn Michaels? And who's going to be the Jannetty? The obvious answer was Rollins and Reigns became the Michaels and Ambrose became the Jannetty. Here we are. Now, with that being said, the same thing can be said about every stable. Like, look at the Pinnacle, for example, right? The Pinnacle reminds me of the Hurt Business in the sense that it's very evident to me who will and will not benefit from this stable. MJF will benefit. He's like the Lashley. And Wardlow will also benefit. He's also the Lashley, right? And MJF is also like the MVP in many ways. Everyone else is the Shelton Benjamin and Cedric Alexander. Like, Shawn Spears will go back to, like, you know, doing nothing. And the tag team guys will just probably go back to WWE or some shit like that. Now, let me tell you this, all right? Stables have a very important function in wrestling. Stables can push narratives forward, and stables can really get the job done if used correctly. The main problem with stables, however, is that a lot of them are not used correctly. A lot of them, for some reason, have associations with jobber characters. See what I'm saying? So, for example, like Shelton Benjamin coming into, Hurt Business is all cool for people like me who like Shelton Benjamin. But at the end of the day, like, it makes it easy to kick him out because MVP is like, bro, like, you're a jobber and I pulled you out from, like, being a complete jobber who was chasing Tozawa around to actually being featured on Raw. You're featured on Raw because of Lashley. You're not featured on Raw because you're good, right? You can just say that to him, and Shelton's like, you disrespect me? Yeah, I disrespect you. You suck, you know? Kayfabe-wise, you're like a jobber. So that's kind of the idea, right? You see what I'm saying there, motherfucks? The facts are what the facts are. And a lot of times, stables do this. They take wrestlers and they promote them up or down accordingly, right? They promote and demote them up or down as they wish. So a perfect example is this. You can call this a stable, right? You can call it a stable, but you might not. I don't know. Kip Sabian and Miro and Penelope Ford, right? That's kind of a stable. Boom. Just like that. On the main event. On the main event. You know what I'm saying? Main event. Last week, they're like on the pre-show. This week, they're on the main event. It's because of the fact that they're in a stable. And one guy pulls the other one down, or one guy pushes the other one up. That's what happens, right? Depending on the week. And that's not good. So, to parallel it, if the match is Shelton Benjamin versus someone, that's on the pre-show. If the match is Shelton Benjamin and Bobby Lashley versus Drew McIntyre and Sheamus, let's say, that could be a main event, right? Shelton Benjamin all of a sudden is in the main event. You know, that shouldn't happen. There should be a clear hierarchy in stables, right? And in wrestling, that is adhered to. Otherwise, we lose control of what's going on. We lose our minds, right? Most importantly of all, though, stables need to have a purpose. They need to have a goal. And once that goal is reached, the stable should either disband or find a new goal and address the new goal immediately. So, perfect example, once again, Hurt Business. What is their goal? To promote Lashley as a beast. That's their goal. It's never been hidden. Lashley's a centerpiece. He's like the CEO or whatever they call him of the Hurt Business. So everyone else is just there to boost him. He's been boosted. They have no other goals now. That's their only goal. So the stable must disband. The goal has been achieved. Good for you guys. Thanks for the goal. Beat it. Right? Let's look, for example, at the goal of Inner Circle. They have a much more open-ended goal, which is to dominate AEW wrestling, right? And to become the kings of AEW because AEW is a new company and they want to be in control, right? They haven't done that yet. They did it for a while, kind of, and now they're still working hard towards it. Now they're in a feud with, Pinnacle, who has the exact same goal. Like the goals of Pinnacle and Inner Circle, Pinnacle and Inner Circle are the same exact thing, right? That's why they're going to feud together, But there's then, once in a while, great stables have very specific goals. And in my opinion, the time when these goals are the best and the most applicable is when the audience is waiting and thinking, why hasn't someone done this yet? Think about what I'm saying, motherfuckers. So let's say, for example, let's say you have, Ryback comes back and he joins 205 Live, right? Even though he's 300 pounds. And every week he starts beating up cruiserweights. Eventually, right, he starts beating them up on Raw. He starts beating them up on SmackDown or whatever, right? Eventually on Raw, Ryback gets a title shot against, I don't know, the US champion, Matt Riddle, right? And Ryback is about to beat Matt Riddle. And then at that point, Tozawa and like Grand Metalik come out. They kick Ryback in the head, causing Matt Riddle to hit the Bro Derek and win, right? Ryback is incensed. He's furious, right? The cruiserweights then form a stable called Cruiserweight Elite. Fuck it, call it whatever you want, right? And their goal specifically is to be done with this bullying, to be done with the idea that they're inferior because they're cruiserweights. That actually would be a great stable. Just like 8 cruiserweights who are like, I'm tired of being on the pre-show. I'm tired of being on 205 Live. I deserve a chance. I'm better than Matt Riddle, right? You know? And then they go after Ryback because he's been bullying them. You know? If you see someone bullying someone on TV, the immediate question that comes to your mind is, why isn't someone doing anything about this? Who will? Right? Just like those situations where Vince McMahon was like, Trish Stratus, you have to kiss my ass. And then you're like, oh my God, who's going to save her? And The Rock comes out and saves her, right? It's the same principle, you know? One great example of this, I have to give AEW credit where credit is due. The QT Marshall stable that's forming, right? I'm assuming this is going to be a stable. Who the fuck knows what's going to happen, right? This is, in my opinion, one of the most organically formed stables of all time. Of all time. It's not a stable that's formed for no reason. It's not like you have like Bullet Club and it's like, oh, this guy just joined Bullet Club. No. This is a stable that has come together seemingly for a very specific purpose. And I believe that QT Marshall should allow the hater to join his stable because it is a stable that actually makes sense. One of the only ones that makes sense, right? The Hurt Business makes sense too because it's like an opportunist stable. It's like, I want to better myself, so I'm going to join like a group of winners, right? But that's basically every stable. Very, very rarely do stables have a legitimate common goal, right? And I don't mean like a vague common goal, like we want to be winners. No. I mean a specific common goal. It's typically some horseshit like we are the Hounds of Justice. Shut the fuck up. That sounds stupid. The Hounds of Justice? Oh, we're here to maintain justice. No. Like, a great example would be Nexus. Nexus was a group that really had a joint purpose. Their purpose was, we are tired of being called rookies and being treated like shit and being forced to compete against one another so only one of us gets a contract. No, motherfucks. Fuck you. We all want a contract and we're going to beat the shit out of all of you until we get it, right? Daniel Bryan spits on John Cena or spits on whatever, chokes out some guy with a tie. And the entire point was like, he was like, you think you're better than me, Cena? You think you're better than me, right? That was the idea, right? The whole idea was Daniel Bryan being like, no, I'm good too. And like Wade Barrett and all those other guys, I'm good too. You're not gonna just look down on me because I'm a rookie and you're gonna pair me with like some guy who just looks down his nose at me. No. That's not how it's gonna go down, motherfucker. Nexus, we walk alone, right? Good stable, you know what I'm saying? Same thing with this QT Marshall faction, right? This is a faction that I believe is long overdue. You look at the factions in AEW, and a lot of them are retarded, right? Inner Circle just makes sense because it's like Jericho, and everyone wants to be associated with Jericho because Jericho could make you a star. Like, if, for example, Sammy Guevara becomes tag team champions with Jericho, Sammy Guevara, that's going to be one of the highlights of his career. It's just like Edge, right? Edge has become like a million-time world champion. He's probably going to do it again in a few weeks. But one of the career highlights for Edge is winning the titles with Hulk Hogan from Billy and Chuck, right? Winning the tag team titles because you just won it with Hulk Hogan. Same thing. If Sammy Guevara wins something with Jericho, he just won with Jericho, right? So that faction actually makes sense. But the Pinnacle, for example, makes zero sense because they're all jobbers. They're either WWE rejects, right? Or they're Wardlow, who actually has some potential, or they're MJF. And MJF's the leader. They're following MJF as if he's going to make them into stars. You know? That remains to be seen, motherfuckers. So there you go. Then you have the Dark Order. They all look like jobbers. Now they're pretty much like becoming jobbers. Like they're just acting like jobbers. They're, you know, the Dark Order element of it is completely done. I understand that happened because Brody Lee died, but there was no purpose in this. What was their motivation, you know? And like I said back in the day, what is the motivation of Dark Order versus the Brandy Rhodes one, whatever, Dark Circle, what's it called? It'll come to me, motherfucks. The Nightmare Collective. What's the difference between Nightmare Collective and Dark Order? They're just two mysterious groups that want to do evil shit. You know? What's the point? right? They have no purpose. They have no specific purpose. They have no specific end goal, right? Evolution, great stable, great end goal. The end goal is Triple H will remain champion until it is time for him to not be champion anymore, at which point the ball will be picked up by Randy Orton and Batista, and they will become the champions, right? That is the goal. It's the very specific goal of Evolution. You know, NWO, very specific goal. Fuck you, motherfucks. I'm not a face anymore. I'm heel Hulk Hogan. Kiss my ass. You didn't like me. You booed me. You have the nerve. I'm the real star. I am wrestling, right? And now we're going to destroy wrestling from within. Real goal, right? The QT Marshall faction, I really enjoyed the segment. I really liked the QT Marshall segment on AEW, not Impact, whatever the fuck it's called, AEW Dynamite, right? I thought it was the best segment, and I'm really happy that QT Marshall is getting an opportunity because he's someone that a few weeks ago I would have said he's just like Brandon Cutler in the sense that he's never going to win anything. But basically what happened was QT Marshall disqualified himself in a match against Cody Rhodes, and then pile drove Cody Rhodes and Goldust, or maybe just Goldust. Yeah, he pile drove Goldust onto steel steps, right? And he was joined by like 3 or 4 students from the Nightmare Academy, which is like whatever their training center, right? That QT Marshall trained, and they beat up not Leon Ruff, but like the Lee Johnson or whatever, like the AEW Leon Ruff. They beat him up because he like apparently won a match and didn't thank QT Marshall. This stable, let me tell you, motherfucks, why this stable is great. This stable is fantastic because of one reason, right? QT Marshall's frustrations are completely understood. Like, they're understandable and you can empathize with them. In my opinion, QT Marshall is the face and Cucky Rhodes is the heel, right? And as is Goldust, right? Because the whole premise of QT Marshall being mad and all these other students being mad is that nepotism has made it so that Cody Rhodes and Goldust get all the glory, right? Meanwhile, hardworking individuals like the guy with the weird hair and QT Marshall are being overlooked. And it is 100% true if you think about it. That's the idea, motherfuckers. That's the idea. Like, the same way that I complain about how Cucky Rhodes promotes himself and how AEW is just there for the elite to promote themselves, right? That's what QT Marshall is doing. His argument is, yo, wait a second. What about me? Why don't I get any credit, huh? Why does Cody Rhodes get the elaborate entrance? Why does Cody Rhodes get the entrance with like a ramp and all these other things, right? Why is there so much big money being spent on Cody Rhodes? I want to be Cody Rhodes. Why is Cody Rhodes, right? This is fair. This is a fair point. And the goal of this faction will obviously be to beat the shit out of Cody Rhodes so that he spreads that wealth around, right? And so that he does not become this prima donna. Now, of course, AEW is going to screw it up by making Cody Rhodes the face. This trope needs to be flipped on its head. And the person like QT Marshall needs to be the face. And Cody Rhodes needs to be the arrogant guy who is using the company to further his own agenda, because that's literally what's happening. He is an arrogant guy who is using the company to further himself. This does not sound like a face to me. This sounds like a heel. But they're going to spin it as Cody Rhodes is the face, and the guy who's completely right is the heel, because he went overboard by doing a pile driver, right? The fact is, Goldust has never been a draw. You know, I like Goldust, but he's never been this huge draw. And in AEW, he's presented as a serious guy, right? Cody Rhodes has made an entire faction built around him for some reason, and this faction is now separated, I should say, right? With QT Marshall going his own way, and it makes sense. QT Marshall has no reason to associate himself with Cody Rhodes if all that's going to happen is they're going to have a match where they're presented as equals, but Cucky Rhodes gets an elaborate entrance every week, and QT Marshall gets no entrance at all. You know, that should be part of their gimmick. They have no entrance. Like, they just come out, like, kind of like Rusev used to, you know, and, like, be serious. But, like, they basically, like, come out, they refuse to have an entrance because they're like, no. Fuck you, you know? We don't need an entrance. We're here because we mean business. And Cucky Rhodes doesn't want us to have an entrance. You know, that can be their gimmick. Or their, not gimmick, but their thing, right? And that's why this stable is extremely interesting to me, right? Everyone in that stable, presumably, all the students are going to be like, Cody Rhodes never was going to give us a chance. Why am I on the pre-show? Why am I not here, motherfucks? QT believes in me. Why doesn't Cody, right? And as a result, fuck Cody. QT's my real teacher. I'm going to attack you, motherfucker. This, to me, makes sense. This seems like a good stable, you know? QT Marshall, I don't know if he fits the bill of being a guy that should lead a stable. I don't really care. He's not going to be the one that gets the rub from the stable. It's probably going to be like the wild man guy, like whatever. Like he has like an Italian name or something, like the strong guy of the group. I hope he gets the push. I like him. But the point is, this stable is good because it has an end goal. Dethrone Cody. Take Cody down a peg. Make him not be the center of the show under whatever circumstances they want to do it in, right? If they win a title here and there, that's good. And a group like that can justifiably say, we want to win titles because titles bring more exposure. The Hurt Business winning the tag team titles means nothing because their goal, I don't think, ever was to win a lot of titles. Their goal clearly is to make Lashley champion. Goal achieved. Who cares if you're tag team champions, you know? So there you have it, motherfucks. There you have it. That's what makes a good stable. Specific goals. Like this stable has come together because they dislike something specific. They dislike Cody Rhodes, right? They dislike what's being done to them specifically. Not like generally, right? But specifically. Ryback is beating my ass. I'm going to go after Ryback. The Rock is kicking my ass. I'm going to go after The Rock, right? So if someone steps on too many toes, it only makes sense that those people would be pissed off and they would attack them, right? So it would be like, for example, let's say in the Attitude Era, right? Like one day, this wouldn't be a very compelling stable, so it would probably be for one episode. But one Monday Night Raw, all the women come, like 20 women, and they attack Bubba Ray and Devon, and they put them through tables, right? Just as payback for what they've done to them all this time. That would make sense. It would be an alliance that makes sense. The Dudley Boys are misogynist, and all they do is put us through tables. So fuck these guys. We're going to gang up on them and have someone, like a woman like, I don't know, China or like Jacqueline or something like that. A woman that's like kind of strong, maybe like do like an assisted power bomb on like Devon or something, right? He's a little smaller. Yeah? Like that would be something nice, right? That would be something that would make sense. But if people just get together for no reason, oh, they're just friends. I mean, they're just friends. Like in AEW, there was a vignette. It was Ethan Page and fucking, what's his face? Scorpio Sky. They're a tag team now. Why are they a tag team? You know what I mean? Because they're both like they haven't been given their opportunities? What do you mean? Ethan Page just got signed. And he was in like a match that Scorpio Sky won, I think.